Every morning, across America, millions of people sit down to the same bowl. They have read the packaging, they have seen the commercials, they have followed the guidelines their entire lives. And every single morning, without knowing it, they are pushing their body closer to a metabolic crisis. I know that sounds alarming, but what I am about to show you is supported by peer-reviewed research that the mainstream nutrition world has quietly ignored for decades. My name is Dr. William Lee. I am a metabolic specialist with 19 years of clinical experience, studying how specific foods interact with human physiology at the cellular level. And in that time, I have uncovered something that has completely reversed the health trajectory of hundreds of my patients. There is a forgotten crop, consumed for thousands of years in one corner of the world, that regulates glucose levels in a way that modern medicine is only beginning to fully appreciate. And the food sitting in your kitchen right now that you eat every single morning? It is silently doing the exact opposite of what you have been promised. Stay until the very end, because the final thing I share today could be the single most important dietary decision you ever make. Before we continue, I want to hear from you directly. Are you currently struggling with elevated glucose levels, borderline metabolic range, or a metabolic condition? Drop your situation in the comments below. I personally read every single comment, and your experience shapes exactly what I cover next. Morning porridge. Let me describe something you might recognize immediately. You wake up. You prepare your morning bowl. You feel confident about your choice because every trusted source you have ever turned to pointed you in this direction. But 90 minutes later, you are hungry again, reaching for something sweet, feeling that familiar mental fog settling in before noon. That is not a discipline problem. That is not weakness. That is your body responding exactly the way it was designed to respond after that particular breakfast. Here is the biology nobody ever walks you through. When you consume morning porridge, even the minimally processed variety, your digestive system converts it into sugar with startling speed. The industrial preparation these grains undergo before reaching your kitchen dismantles the cellular fiber architecture that would otherwise create a natural brake on digestion. Sugar floods your circulation rapidly. Your pancreas detects the surge and fires a massive hormone wave to pull levels back down. But here is where the real damage begins. That hormone response overshoots. Your levels do not simply return to a healthy range, they drop below it. And that drop sends a distress signal to your brain, triggering intense hunger and sweet cravings less than 2 hours after finishing breakfast. So you eat again. Levels surge again. Hormones fire again. Levels crash again. Repeat this pattern every morning for years, and your physician gives it a clinical name. But here is what your physician never mentioned. The morning bowl started the cycle. A controlled trial published in Nutrition and Metabolism monitored 47 adults in the borderline metabolic range across a 12-week period. The group consuming morning porridge regularly finished the study with their morning sugar reading elevated by 8 units. Their hormone levels had risen 23%. Their 3-month sugar average had climbed by 0.3 points. The group that eliminated it entirely showed zero movement across every single marker. Completely stable. And here is the detail that stunned even the research team. The minimally processed variety, marketed aggressively as the superior option, produced an identical glucose surge to the instant version. The only difference was timing. The metabolic outcome was exactly the same. The forgotten crop. Now let me show you what I promised at the beginning. There is a crop that has sustained communities in the Ethiopian highlands for over 3,000 years. So deeply woven into that culture that it appears in traditional ceremonies, daily meals, and generations of medicinal practice. Communities that historically showed remarkably stable metabolic health. Modern laboratory science is now revealing exactly why. That crop is called Teff, and the overwhelming majority of Americans have never encountered it. Researchers published findings in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry after bringing 30 volunteers into a controlled environment and feeding them equal portions of Teff and morning porridge on separate occasions 7 days apart. Sugar levels and hormone responses were tracked continuously for 3 full hours following each meal. The contrast was stark. After morning porridge, circulating sugar climbed to 127 units. The hormone surge reached 42. Elevated readings persisted for over 2 full hours. After Teff, circulating sugar peaked at just 89 units. The hormone response reached only 14. Everything normalized within 45 minutes. That is a 30% smaller sugar peak, a 66% smaller hormone surge, from an identical serving size. Why the forgotten crop works. 4 separate biological mechanisms explain why Teff behaves so differently inside your body. Slow-release fiber. A significant portion of Teff's carbohydrate content passes through your small intestine completely undigested. It reaches your colon intact, nourishes beneficial microorganisms, and triggers production of short-chain compounds, particularly butyrate, that actively sharpen your cell's response to metabolic hormones. Natural plant inhibitors. Teff contains compounds called tannins that physically obstruct the enzymes responsible for converting complex carbohydrates into circulating sugar. The conversion happens gradually and under control, not in a sudden, unregulated flood. Protein density. Teff carries an unusually rich amino acid profile for a grain crop. That protein content decelerates how quickly food moves through your digestive tract, naturally smoothing the curve of sugar entering circulation. Phenolic compounds. An additional layer of enzyme inhibition built directly into the grain's natural chemistry, a second biological brake on sugar absorption that morning porridge simply does not possess. Together, these 4 mechanisms produce something no processed grain can offer: a morning meal that raises your circulating sugar gradually, maintains it steadily, and returns it to a healthy range smoothly. No surge, no collapse, no desperate hunger an hour later, no mid-morning mental fog. Marcus. 2 years ago, a man came into my practice who had been losing his battle with a metabolic condition for years without gaining any ground. He was 58. His morning sugar reading sat consistently between 140 and 160 units. His 3-month sugar average was 8.4. On medication, and his numbers were still drifting in the wrong direction. When I asked about his daily meals, the first thing out of his mouth was his morning bowl. Every single day. For years. Because every source he trusted told him it was the right choice. I asked him to make one change. Replace his morning porridge with Teff. Nothing else modified. He was unconvinced. Told me directly he doubted one crop could move numbers that medication had failed to shift. 4 weeks later, morning reading dropped to 115. 8 weeks, reading at 105. 3-month average at 7.8. 12 weeks, morning reading at 98. 3-month average at 7.1. His physician, who had managed his case for 3 years without witnessing a single improvement, contacted me personally, wanting to understand what had shifted. One crop, one morning meal, a result that 3 years of medication alone could never produce. Linda. Linda was 43 when she walked into my office. Metabolic conditions ran through both sides of her family. She had watched the people she loved struggle with it her entire life, and the fear of following that same path consumed her. Her morning reading hovered between 108 and 112 units. Her 3-month average sat at 5.9, technically in the borderline metabolic range. Her physician had started her on a standard medication. She was experiencing difficult digestive reactions and desperately wanted another path. She had been eating her morning porridge faithfully every single day, genuinely believing she was making the right choice. I suggested Teff. She agreed to try it for 4 weeks, with considerable skepticism. 4 weeks later, morning reading at 100, 3-month average at 5.5, no longer in the borderline range. 8 weeks, morning reading at 97, 3-month average at 5.4. Medication discontinued with full physician approval. Normal readings, no medication, from one morning meal change. How to prepare Teff. Getting preparation right matters, so here is exactly what produces the best results. Teff comes in 3 varieties. The pale variety carries the mildest taste and is the best entry point for most people. The red variety has a slightly nuttier character. The darker variety delivers the most robust flavor of the 3. The ratio that works: 1 cup dry Teff to 3 cups of water or low-sodium broth. Bring your liquid to a full boil. Add Teff gradually while stirring without stopping. This prevents clumping. Drop heat to low immediately. Allow it to simmer gently for 15 to 20 minutes with occasional stirring. It will absorb the liquid and develop a smooth, creamy texture, similar to polenta or grits. The extended preparation time compared to morning porridge is actually an advantage. It preserves the slow-release fiber and natural inhibitor compounds fully intact. Serving size: half a cup dry Teff produces roughly 1.5 cups cooked. Similar volume to your usual morning bowl. Dramatically different metabolic outcome. What to pair it with? Never consume Teff alone. Always combine it with a protein source and a healthy fat. 2 eggs alongside it. A spoonful of almond butter mixed in. Greek yogurt and walnuts on the side. These additions decelerate digestion further and smooth your sugar curve even more. Non-negotiable. If you are currently taking any medication for your metabolic condition, speak with your physician before making this change. As your readings improve, your dosage may require adjustment. This is a welcome development, but it requires professional supervision. Other forgotten grains. Teff is my primary recommendation, but these are worth knowing. Amaranth shares many of Teff's core properties: slow-release fiber content, low sugar response, stable hormone output. Sorghum contains natural enzyme inhibitors that decelerate carbohydrate conversion. Millet carries a meaningfully lower sugar response than morning porridge. And fonio, a tiny West African crop almost completely absent from American grocery stores, produces one of the lowest sugar responses ever recorded for any grain in controlled laboratory conditions. Every one of these has been sitting in obscurity while a multi-billion-dollar morning porridge industry spent decades ensuring you never looked elsewhere. Let me be direct with you before we finish. You have probably been doing everything right, by the standards you were handed. You chose the bowl on the healthy label. You followed the guidance. You trusted the institutions. And those institutions failed you. But here is what has not failed you: your body's extraordinary capacity to respond when you finally give it what it genuinely needs. People in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are watching their 3-month averages drop, watching their morning readings normalize, watching their medication requirements reduce under physician supervision because they made one morning meal change. Not a complete lifestyle overhaul, not an expensive program, not a supplement protocol. One forgotten crop. Available online, available at specialty stores across America, affordable for any budget, simple to prepare, backed by peer-reviewed research that has been sitting quietly in scientific journals while the morning porridge commercials kept running. Find Teff this week. Prepare it this weekend. Eat it Monday morning alongside protein and healthy fat. Then observe what happens to your readings across the following 30 days. Your numbers do not have to keep climbing. Your 3-month average does not have to keep rising, and you do not have to keep feeling like your own body is working against you. It never was. It was simply waiting for the right morning meal. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Every single week, I bring you research like this that mainstream nutrition continues to overlook. Leave me a comment right now. Are you going to try Teff this week? Tell me your current morning reading or 3-month average. I read every single comment and I genuinely want to follow your progress. Take care of yourself. I will see you tomorrow.